Eastern Kentucky leaders gather in Hazard to talk about lessons learned after the flood. And Facebook's parent company gets a victory in court.
Plus, showers continue in the forecast, but I don't have an all-day washout anywhere in the next 7 days. I'm breaking it all down coming up as First at 4 continues.
Mountain News First at 4 continues.
Dozens of leaders from across Eastern Kentucky are in Hazard to celebrate those who have answered the call in the past 9 months and how to move forward after the flood. The 2023 East Kentucky Leadership Conference is underway. WYMT's Chandler Wilcox reports from Hazard Community and Technical College.
Multiple organizations have gathered to discuss how they can lead through disaster recovery, specifically the July 2022 flood. Discussions included dialogue about the flood itself, what stage of recovery the region is at, and where it can be. Apple Red disaster response attorney Whitney Bailey says communicating creates a structured response.
Gathering with organizations and all the individuals that are here today, they are amazing resources, and I'm very thankful to be able to connect with them and kind of learn how we can all work together and keep this process moving forward best we can.
Some of the longer-term issues discussed included housing and financial assistance. I will have more on that at 6. In Hazard, Chandler Wilcox, WYMT Mountain News.
The East Kentucky Leadership Awards banquet will be at 6 o'clock tonight, and of course we'll have coverage of that at 11. Governor Andy Beshear is set to give a virtual keynote speech. Here in Eastern and Southern Kentucky, we are covering our region 7 days a week, of course, on television, on WYMT.com, and on the WYMT News app. But even when we are not on the air, the local news live team has you covered with the big stories of the day and breaking news as it happens. L&L lead anchor and WYMT national correspondent Deborah Alfarone joins us now from Washington. And Deborah, good to see you again. Let's first talk about a big story this week in D.C. The House voted Wednesday to pass a bill to raise the nation's debt ceiling. So what happens next with that, and could the U.S. still end up defaulting on its debt?
Well, it is possible, and you know, Steve, anything is possible here in Washington. We do know that from covering Washington for such a long time. But what happens next is that, let me just turn this down here for a second. What happens next is that we have to figure out what the president is going to do. This bill will go to the Senate, but it's going to be dead on arrival. So it's not, you might think to yourself, well, why then bother to pass it in the House if it's not going to make it to the Senate? Well, if it's not going to pass the Senate, it really is because of politics. And I spoke with some representatives earlier today who say that the reason why they wanted to pass this is really to send a message. They want to negotiate with President Biden. And they, of course, want to make sure that they're cutting costs. They don't want to just pass a bill that raises the debt limit. What they want to do is actually take that debt down. But President Biden says there will be negotiations. So that kind of leaves us where we were before this bill passed. And we're going to have to just stay tuned.
Yeah, still much more to come on that. We'll be following it closely. Well, Deborah, it's almost been 2 months now since you joined Local News Live as part of the network's relaunch. Tell us about the work you've been doing and what makes Local News Live different from other news sources.
Steve, it's been pretty exciting around here. We have a 24-hour streaming channel, and we are here in the heart of Washington, D.C., just steps away from the U.S. Capitol. We have access to lawmakers and newsmakers, but really more than that, when there's breaking news anywhere, all across the country, odds are we're going to have a local news reporter from one of our many Gray stations who's on the ground, who knows that community and knows the people affected by this breaking news in that community. So we bring them on to Local News Live, and they can give us a fresh perspective that nobody else can give. As you know, local news reporters know their area better than anyone else. So that's the beauty of that, and that's the power of that local reporting. We're so excited about it, and we are working on so many new and exciting things coming up.
So tell us about some of those things. What can we expect from L&L in the near future? I know you're preparing for a certain event across the pond.
Yes, we are the coronation of King Charles, and I have been brushing up on this. We have a whole team who's brushing up on this because we want to make sure we're going to be doing a lot of hours of live TV, and you know what that's like. You have to talk, you have to bring value, you have to bring perspective. So we have a whole bunch of guests who will be coming on, some of them from our Gray stations who know this better than anyone, and it's going to be May 6th. I will be here early, very early, and I'll be here for a long time, so please tune in, Steve, and all of your viewers, please tune in.
And some still may not know how they can tune in to Local News Live, so tell folks how they can do that.
When your newscast ends on your app and on your website, that's when Local News Live comes on. So you don't have to go far. If you're watching this and watching your news on your app or on your website, just keep it there because Local News Live is on 24 hours a day.
All right, Deborah Alfarone, continued success to you and Local News Live, and we'll be watching. Thank you. Well, Governor Beshear's office has announced more than $4.6 million in state funding to help buy land and develop buildings in our area to stimulate job growth. It is part of the Kentucky Product Development Initiative. The governor's office has approved state funds for half of the cost of building a 105,000 square foot facility in the Southern Kentucky Business Park. That's in partnership with Bell, Knox, and Whitley counties. One East Kentucky and the Johnson County Fiscal Court will receive more than $217,000 to pay for half of an expansion of an industrial park in Hager Hill in Johnson County. This comes 1 month after the Beshear administration announced an initial round of approvals for several other projects, including in Laurel, Carter, and Lawrence counties.
Well, an increasingly soggy Thursday afternoon all throughout the region. We continue to see the potential for more of that rain as we work through later tonight. Here's the view right now from along the Mountain Parkway. It's Slade, 70 degrees. Rain hasn't quite made it all the way there yet. Maybe some light returns falling at this point. We had the picture there from Hazard. If we wait long enough, we might be able to see it there as it kind of loads in the background. Into the upper 50s and low 60s throughout much of the region. We get up into the 70s as we head into the Big Sandy where the rain really hasn't moved in yet. You see that here. Parts of Magoffin, Morgan, up to Johnson and Lawrence counties still not dealing with the rain, but further south you go, that's where we're dealing with it. Perhaps the heaviest rain right now there in the far southern and eastern parts of Pulaski County. Everything here moving southwest to northeast. We'll continue to do that through this evening. Your forecast first as we head through tonight. We're going to see those rain showers continue. How about the middle 60s turning into the low 60s? And upper 50s by the time we wake up on our TGIF. But Steve, I'll have the latest on when we could see some scattered thunderstorms and when we could see the potential for even cooler weather. That's in a few minutes.
All right, Evan, thank you. In Oklahoma, there is one man with a specific passion, fishing and hunting. Harold Hooper is known as a man who never sits still, but when he wanted to buy an old bait and tackle shop just to keep it open, his family members thought he was a little crazy. Caitlin Deggs has his story.
Harold Hooper is known as a man who never sits still, but when he wanted to buy an old bait and tackle shop to keep it open, his family members thought he was crazy. When the previous owner couldn't keep the shop anymore, Harold decided to step in and run the place.
This place has been here for 38 years, and this old man, I've known him all my life, and he started this sucker 30-some years ago. And he's kept it up until his health got bad, and I bought him out and took it over.
With the help of some family members, the bait barn has been transformed into Hooper's Bait and Tackle. His granddaughter says it's been a good thing for him.
He's active anyways. I mean, he's always fishing or hunting, or he's at one of the local boomerangs eating. He does stuff with church, or him and Charlie are off doing something together. I mean, he's never, ever been just home.
She says Harold, who everybody in town knows as Grandpa, has always been there for anyone who needed it. So this is her family's chance to be there for him.
It's hard not to find somebody that doesn't know who he is, or who hasn't done something with him, or who hasn't worked with him, or who hasn't worked for him, or, you know, I mean, he's always done a lot.
Even though Harold is passionate about all things fishing, it isn't the reason why he bought the shop. He wants to help his great-grandkids go to college debt-free.
I wanted to make sure that she had a way through school and didn't have a debt hanging over half her life. My granddaughter, it took her about 12 years to pay for her student debt, and I didn't want that for my great-granddaughter.
Jessica says she's so thankful to have a grandpa like Harold.
It's really neat. He's a real special person.
Caitlin Deggs, Oklahoma's Own, News on 6.
A lawsuit looking to break up Facebook's parent company, Meta, will not be moving forward. The U.S. Court of Appeals for the D.C. Circuit tossed out an antitrust suit filed by New York and dozens of other states. The group was looking to unwind Meta's past acquisitions of Instagram and WhatsApp, but the three-judge panel ruled the states were years too late in filing their challenge. The states also failed to persuade the judges that Meta's data policies harmed competition. This is a major victory for Meta, but a blow to regulators who accuse the company of abusing its dominance. Meta still faces a similar lawsuit brought by the Federal Trade Commission. Samsung Electronics profits have plunged 95%. The world's biggest memory chip maker said operating profits fell to about $479 million for the January to March quarter. That is the company's lowest profit for any quarter in 14 years. Samsung says the dive is driven by weak demand for tech services. It comes after a global downturn, with shoppers cutting back on purchases due to rising inflation. As a result, smartphone, personal computers, and server companies have run down inventories, causing chip prices to plunge by about 70% during the previous 9 months. Coming up on First at 4, Wall Street is closely watching the banking sector now that 2 small banks have failed. The latest in our Money Watch report.
Plus, showers continue into the forecast. I'll have the latest on when these start to move on out in a few minutes.